Hi friends! Welcome back to my channel. My name is Sasha. Today we are doing a science fiction book review of a book that I'm very excited to tell people about, and I hope you are just as excited to sit here and listen to it with me. What are words? This is my first video of the day, so my brain is still turning on. We're gonna get it to work eventually. Before I do get started and attempt to do this review, we're going to take a quick pause to hear a word from today's sponsor. Hey there friends, it's me, Sasha, and today's sponsor is my Etsy shop, Dreaming of Stars Co. Have you ever wished you could match the vibe of your favorite book to a bookmark? Have you ever started reading a book but wanted to take a break and realized there was nothing close by except the last receipt from your library to use to hold your place? Hey, we're here to listen. We don't judge. Whether it's dark romance, queer, indie, fantasy, sci-fi, nonfiction, we've got bookmark designs just for you. And when I say we, it's really just me, but the we makes it sound, official or something. All my bookmarks are made right here in this very room. By me, myself, Sasha Marie. You can use code WELCOME10 on your first order for a discount. Thank you so much for watching. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming. So the book we're talking about today is Ocean's Godori by Elaine Yu Cho. This, like I said in the beginning, is a science fiction fantasy novel. This story follows our main character, Ocean, in the future where we have Earth still. It's quite different and also sort of the same as the Earth you and I would know today. The sort of epicenter is focused on Korea. And it's not, in this book, as far as I remember, South Korea or North Korea, it's just called Korea. So as we follow this character, Ocean, she is Korean. There is it's a very mixed bag, like depending on who you talk to. Either being Korean and being 100% Korean is really revered and a great thing, or it can be a really bad thing. It just all sort of depends. There's a lot of different prejudice discussed in this book because not only do we have the characters on Earth, but we also explore Mars, Mercury, Venus, all of these other planets. We don't necessarily get to meet a lot of those other creatures, but they are talked about in stories and anecdotes along the way. And we also find out how Earth has sort of colonized these other places for their resources without much care or thought about the people or creatures who are trying to live there, because a lot of Earth's inhabitants have also moved to these other planets and have sort of colonized them, I suppose, is the best way to put it. I really enjoyed one of the aspects of this book was a lot of Korean language actually used throughout the text, and there is a glossary of some of the terms in the very back after the acknowledgements section. So if you need some help with that, you can go to the glossary. I thought in context a lot of it made sense anyway, and I surprisingly knew a lot of the Korean words because of my exposure to, where are they? To K-pop, and I watch so much Korean content and have for the last 5 years that my little brain has actually picked up a word or two. So this wasn't exceptionally difficult for me, and I don't think it will be a barrier to entry for anyone else who decides to read this book, especially with the glossary in the back. And I mean, Google is a tap or two away to just look up what that word means. But it definitely helps if you have an understanding of Korean culture and Korean lifestyle and background. And food specifically, games, specifically card games, are sort of a very big deal. One of the card games is how we get the title of the book, and that was like an aha moment for me because it wasn't a game I was personally familiar with. So this story takes place sort of, I think we start on Earth and then we go into space pretty quickly. We are following 3 main characters. We sort of jump from perspective to perspective, but it's more like a third person sort of omniscient. We're like watching everyone, but we follow 3 of the main characters more closely than everyone else. We follow Ocean, who is a pilot of these spaceships. She's had a few different career moves in her past. She was training to be sort of like a political liaison. She was also training to be a diver in Jeju like her mother. And then when that didn't work out and she had a death in her family, she decided to follow in her brother's footsteps and become a pilot. And that's where we meet Ocean, is as she is piloting this ship. We get to meet her crew, and there have been a few changes to the crew as the story begins, and we have a new character who is called a Mortimain, and he is essentially sort of like a death worker, or potentially someone who might work in a morgue or something like that. He's also a healer, so he works in the ship's infirmary, and he performs death rituals and death rites. So a lot of people are very prejudiced against this group of people. They live on their own moon. They've been kicked out of where they used to live, and people don't necessarily talk to them, look at them, interact with them, except for this whole crew who is enthralled by him, has so many questions for him, and it was sort of a beautiful moment for him to realize that people aren't just cruel because of their fear of death. They can also have so many different facets and personalities and beliefs, and that was really heartwarming to see. The third character we follow, his name is Tio. He is the son of this tech conglomerate who is part of the reason, or really one of the main reasons, all of these other planets are being colonized, and his family uses him for political gain, and he's very aware of his role within his family, but he's not as aware of the atrocities his family has committed. And he is probably the character with the main really like plot that gets us through the novel. I would say this is much more character driven, but the plot is and does get really intense at times, because there is a scheme to destroy his family and do some really bad things. And there are a few scenes that are quite heartbreaking and that really shocked me. A lot of the action in this book doesn't take place until page like 150, so as long as you're vibing with the story and the characters and you can hang in there until that big turning point, I think you'll be fine. I think you do need to go into this knowing that this is a little more of a character study than it is a plot-driven sci-fi story. That's not to say the plot isn't good and doesn't really grab your attention, because like I mentioned, once we get to that one extremely upsetting and heartbreaking scene, everything after that is very fast-paced. And we do have a few scenes before that is like a little action sequence, but it just wasn't enough for me to be like, oh my god, I have to know what happens next. Like after the one scene on where something happens with Tio and his crew, which is different from Ocean and her crew, I was so locked into this story, I didn't put this book down until I finished it. I also really loved the writing in this book. Some of the ways this author described things, one of the phrases or sentences, and I'm going to paraphrase, that stuck out to me the most was, you could gauge how old this person was by the rings and layers of dirt and grime on their skin. How descriptive, how crazy. It brings in like the rings of trees, how you count how many rings a tree has to know how old they are, but instead this person is so dirty, so filthy, you could remove one layer of dirt at a time to find out how old they are and like how much life they've lived. I thought that was just an insane description, and there are so many little moments like that. And this really is just a study of people, and people of different cultures and backgrounds, and people with different goals, and how people try to survive, and how circumstances can change a person and bring out the worst or bring out their best, or just really reveal their true core and who they actually truly are on the inside. As far as the sci-fi setting goes, this wasn't too far-fetched for me to be able to keep up and to understand like spaceship terminologies and laser guns and this goop that like makes your brain numb and like all of this different stuff. It was really easy to follow along with. It was really fun to get to experience this totally different world from the one we live today, and even totally different from a lot of fantasy books that I read. I'm just getting back into science fiction. It's something I pick up every now and then. So this book I think was a great next step after reading All Systems Red earlier in the year. I had a really good time with this, and not many people have picked it up. It did just come out in 2024, but I'm pretty sure I'm the first person in my library to read this, because I could barely open, like, this, I cracked this. I could barely open this book. It opened to here when I first got it, and I was just like, yeah! I'm the first person to read this in my library, at least. So I definitely recommend you guys check it out, because I had a really good time with it. I think if you're interested in Korean culture, or if you're trying to read books from different countries and different places this year, this is a great one to try and see what you think. There are so many different aspects of actual Korean culture put into this book. There are also, of course, the fictional aspects of like Martians and the Mortimains who live on this moon, and all of these different people who are from different places who come together. There's also not just great diversity in this book, but there's good queer representation as well. We have a non-binary character, we have a polyamorous character who has multiple wives and husbands, we have gay characters, queer characters, all sorts of things, and it never felt like it was forced or they were just there to like check off a box. It really felt authentic and like it just fit so perfectly into this story. I also think potentially we might have some neurodiversity representation. Ocean and potentially even the Mortimain character definitely give off some sort of neurodivergent vibes to me, and I don't want to diagnose a character because that's not my place to do that, but let's just say I related to them pretty hardcore. I was like, especially with the way that Ocean has relationships with people and the way that she shows her love and care and affection for them, I thought that was fascinating. And again, it was such a deep character study, I thought, on all of these different characters. We get to meet some Raider characters and sort of understand their lifestyle a little bit better. It was just fascinating. I had a really good time with it. I definitely recommend. I don't think many people know about this book. So please share this video with friends who like sci-fi, friends who like Korean culture and want to read about it. I'm definitely going to share this with my friend Em, because she studies Korean. She can almost speak pretty fluent Korean at this point, and I think she would love this. So I gotta recommend it to my friend Em. Anyways, I'm gonna go. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!